Welcome back to our Tuesday's broadcast of Thrive in the Word. We're going to continue today in studying the book of James. But before we do, just let me ask you to do something for us. Will you hit that subscribe button and hit that like button? It's very easy to do. And you know what? It will help us to reach more people. So would you please do that? It's so important to us that we reach as many people as possible. Now, we're studying in the book of James, and we've looked at verse number 5 where it says, if any man lacks wisdom, let him ask of God. And then basically James tells us that God gives wisdom to everybody. He's not someone who's prejudiced in his wisdom. He gives it freely to everyone. But then in verse number 6, it says that you must ask in faith. Now, that brings us to verse number 7. And this is what verse number 7, James 1, verse number 7, and it says, a man ought not to expect that he will receive anything from God. I've talked to so many people, and they say, well, you know what? I just don't hear anything from God. Well, let me say something to you. You need to understand that God wants to speak to you. He's your Father. He's not giving you the silent treatment like some people have said. No, the problem is that God doesn't just speak carelessly. He speaks when there's faith involved. You see, if you're saying, God, give me wisdom, and then you're running over here to some other person or over to some other like Buddha or something, and you're running over here to your horoscope and you're running here and there and going all around looking for wisdom, you know what God's going to say? You know what? I am not going to waste my breath because they're not going to receive what I'm saying. You know, one of the things that troubles people in ministry, and that's this, that when you speak and you tell someone the truth and then they reject it, and you know that what you just told them is going to benefit them and help them, and they just toss it aside. Well, you know what? The next time that person comes into your office, the next time they call and they want to have an appointment, you know what? You're not going to have the same zeal and the same desire to speak with them. And you see, that's the way it is with God. God knows when you're coming to him, and you're coming to him in faith because he knows that what he tells you, you're going to do it. I have a wonderful, wonderful grandson, and he's just learning how to walk. And you know what? He's learning step by step. Now, he's not running a 100-yard dash yet. Maybe next week, but not this week. Okay? He's learning step by step. And you know what? All throughout your life, God has been giving you difficult situations so that you can learn how to walk. But you know what? He is also watching you. And he's watching your consistency. He's watching your walk. Now, people have said, well, sometimes you just have to go around the mountain again. Well, I believe that's true in many cases where we failed to do what God said, and God says, okay, one more time around this mountain, one more time around this trial, maybe you'll learn. And he's constantly teaching us. But you know what? God's not going to speak unless there's faith present. He's not going to waste his breath. He's not going to speak a word that's all powerful, that will change and move mountains, unless there's faith present. So if you're one of those people and you're saying, I just don't hear God, well, first of all, check, is there sin in your life? But second of all, check, is there any area in my life where I've been disobedient to God, where I didn't do what he asked me to do? If there is, you know what? Go back and become obedient. Go back and do what God said. And you know what will happen? God will see your faith. And then you can expect, this is what James 7 says, for that man ought not to expect that he will receive anything from God. If you didn't listen the first time, don't expect God to speak again. Don't expect it. Don't have this expectation that, oh, God's going to listen to me. He's going to speak to me this time. No, if you neglected to do what he told you the first time, he's not going to speak again, except just to remind you what he told you to do. Do you understand that? You see, God speaks in an atmosphere of faith. He speaks in an atmosphere where someone is saying, I will listen and I will do what you said for me to do. Do you understand that? So go back and ask yourself. Ask yourself, what have I done or not done that God said for me to do? What am I omitting? And what am I committing? Go back and ask yourself that question. Because God operates and he speaks in an atmosphere of faith. Do you understand how important it is for us to do in faith, to believe in faith? You see, we're talking about wisdom. God's not going to give you his wisdom if he knows already that you're not going to listen to what he said. You know, we need to understand that God treasures wisdom. It's a treasure. Read the Proverbs and read the way Solomon talks, especially those first 3 or 4 Proverbs, how Solomon talks about wisdom, about the treasure of wisdom. You see, God treasures his wisdom, and he's not just going to throw it out to people who are disobedient, to people who are not walking in faith. And by the way, faith always produces obedience. So don't expect God to speak to you if you're already walking in doubt, unbelief, disobedience, and those types of things. Don't expect to receive the wisdom of God. That's what James is saying here. Don't expect to receive God's wisdom if you're not already believing what he already has spoken to you. I hope that you've enjoyed this today. God bless you until we speak to you tomorrow here at Thrive in the Word.